Okay, ready to go here? Okay, before we get going here, I want to congratulate Nick DeVitore and his wife Lo on their first child. They brought a daughter, and I can remember like yesterday. I felt like Annie was born just yesterday. So we congratulate Nick. Glad everybody's healthy and doing well. You know, it's been a good week. We've had some really unique speakers that have had an opportunity to talk to our team. Scott Cochran was here. What an incredible talent and story that our players were able to learn from. I'm very thankful for his passion for the things that he's been through. And Patrick Young, you know, just incredible perspective. And I would tell you, what an inspiration. You know, I think I'm just really impressed with his overall attitude and approach. His mom, Benita, was here as well. What an incredible family. And just to hear his story and how much he cares for the University of Florida and the experience he has and the things that he learned as a competitor and now in life. And he had a great message. You know, he talked about how life is now, you know, and to be grateful for today. I think finding the gratitude and viewing every day as an opportunity. He talked about how your belief system at some point will be tested. You know, what are your values? What are your convictions? What do you stand on? What are your non-negotiables? You know, what faith do you have? And just really impressed with him, you know, and I think obviously excited to have Patrick back any day and time to be around the players in our team. You know, the scrimmage went well. We were able to get a ton of work. I think we played about 160 plays total, counting offense, defense, and kicking game. I thought the defense was much better, less mental errors. I think the run fits were polished up and better. I think that we did a good job playing red zone defense, and we got some takeaways. And I think we cleaned up the penalties on offense, but we did have a few penalties on defense to work on. I do think offensively we had a good day on third down. You know, overall, much cleaner. You know, I thought we were much more efficient. We got out of there injury-free for the most part. We did have a few typical injuries, but overall, what we've talked about showed up. I think now going forward, the detail's really important. The urgency's really important. It's very evident that there's great competition. We definitely have more depth than we've ever had. And it's a long season, right? We will need everybody. We're going to need every single person. I think it's important that we embrace our role and we work hard to earn more. Depth is critical in this league and certainly with the schedule that we have. So you got to work while you wait. You know, Tony Robichaux used to say that at the University of Louisiana when I had a chance to be around him, and I think that applies to parts of our roster. So pleased, you know, very pleased. I do think we'll work on ourselves here for a couple more days. We just got done doing a little bit of an in-game process walkthrough. We worked on pregame orientation. We partnered up with a band and sang the fight song in the stadium. So, yeah, it's been good, and we'll work on ourselves 2 days here, Tuesday and Wednesday, and then we'll turn the page to Miami on Thursday. What questions do we have?
You mentioned developing explosives through the air in these scrimmages, especially after the first one. How did you see that progress in the second scrimmage?
We had some explosives. We did. I do think the defense did a good job limiting explosives, but there's no question that we had some throughout. Look, we know turnover margin and explosives are critical factors relative to winning, so we want to be intentional about trying to do that. You know, I think you can rush the ball, then you have a chance to run action pass, the naked game, staying on schedule on third down. So I think that's an area where we need to continue to have focus and do that weekly. That's always a point of emphasis.
What is your assessment of the offensive line right now, and are her jobs still up for grabs there?
Yeah, no, I've been very pleased. I think that we have more depth. There's more competition. We definitely have a two deep there that we have confidence in. But there is competition, you know, and I think there'll be, you know, a lot of what's the ratio of plays. Is it 1-to-1? Is it 2-to-1? And then who's the next best inside player? Who's the next best tackle? And then a lot of that will be determined, I would say, week to week. But I do feel really confident. In particular, the pass protection has been much better. We need to continue to work on developing some of our younger players. We still have some very talented players that are very inexperienced that need every rep that they can get. So, yeah, we've got a good, healthy rotation there and feel good about that group.
Are you pleased with communication now that you've had a couple scrimmages underway with all three phases and communication with the staff when they're on the field?
Yeah, it's been a huge point of emphasis, and I think it's one thing to communicate in a practice setting. We talk about communicating early, loud, and often, and then clearly and concisely with confidence, right? That's the way we would describe it. Interesting dynamic is we do these walkthroughs all through training camp, and we actually do crowd noise during the walkthroughs, right? So there's some verbal communication that has to take place, but there's also a lot of nonverbal, in this game. So when you ask that question, I immediately think about some of these walkthroughs where, up front in the secondary, on third down in that place we call the swamp is it's hard to hear your guy sitting right beside you, much less the corner, the safety, the nickel all being on the same page. So I think it's one of the challenges, and we try to replicate that for the players in training camp.
You talked about Arliss and being kind of explosive, and is he unique, and how's he improving in the tight end aspects of the position that he's had?
Yeah, he's a year older, and I think he's got much more experience and confidence. This time last year, he hadn't played a play, I don't think. So, yeah, I think he went through the growing pains last year, and then you kind of regroup. You know what it's like out there. And then I think you train and prepare a certain way, anticipating, okay, now I understand what's required. But, yeah, he's unique. I think he's a mismatched player. He's loose. He can change direction. He can separate. And then he's a good run-after-catch player, and he's really hard to tackle. So we've had, I think there's a number of examples, but just 2 minutes the other day, he was able to take one the distance. So I think he's a vertical threat, and he has the ability to run after catch when you throw him the short and intermediate stuff as well.
Running backs, I think we saw Jaden Baugh had a touchdown run in the highlights, but how did they look without Montrell? And then what's Montrell's current timeline in terms of his recovery and his rehab?
Yeah, so Montrell's doing fantastic, right? He's been able to do a few things. We expect him to be able to participate in practice, whether that's modified and at some point full speed. But we'll give you an update. Obviously, we're getting ready to turn the page into game week, but we'll give you updates per the timeline up until the game. But we have confidence that Montrell's doing great. And feel good about his return. I do think that the 4 other kids have had fantastic training camps, and it is extremely competitive. Like, I can tell you who's running out there next right now. Now, I know Trayon Webb has game experience, and I trust him. He's by far the best protector. He's tough. He's durable. He's smart. But also, I'm standing back there behind it. And I'm watching Jaden Ball and Jacoby and KD in these 2 scrimmages. And we feel good about that room. They're young, they're inexperienced. It's important for those players to understand that they have to play without the ball. And when it's third down, and you're checking your way out, and that corner comes from off the outside receiver to the boundary, you've got to have good eye discipline. And those are some of the lessons that we've learned the last couple of weeks. So those guys will be ready to go when it comes time.
Billy, back in the spring, you talked about, as part of building the culture, you wanted your guys to have a room full of guys that wanted to be better teammates. Mm-hmm. Are you seeing that from this bunch as we've progressed through the summer?
Yeah, no, it's one of the best things about this team, I think, is the trust level, the respect level. There's a certain loyalty that I think we finally have here, where there's an expectation that you're going to do your best for your teammate. And I do think there's a sense of humor too, right? We had just yesterday, right here in this room, we had our annual rookie skit, right? So to finish off training camp. And just to see the camaraderie, the ability to have a little sense of humor, and jab at each other a little bit, not only players but coaches too, right? So, yeah, I mean, I think that's the fun part of being around this team. And experience too, right? Guys that have been here multiple years. So great. I think one of the things that Scott Cochran talked about was connection and togetherness. Those are the two of the key elements to some of the significant teams that he's been a part of. So I think this group has definitely made progress in that area.
Is it much farther along than the previous two teams, you say?
I think that's a good question for the players, and I think most players that you talk to would say the answer is yes.
How about the development from January to now? I mean, how much are you seeing players getting better, in terms of, and I know the strength staff goes into some of that, but just in terms of, we're seeing Castell, for example, freshman, sophomore, he has a couple interceptions and so forth, in terms of just the improvement.
Yeah, just see, I think it goes back to kind of what we've been talking about. It's one thing to train and practice for a battle that you have no idea what the battle's going to be like. You have no, as a competitor, like I played football, maybe I played somewhere else, maybe I played in high school, and I'm training hard and I'm practicing, I'm trying to do what my coach is telling me, but when I run out there, I have no clue what that's really going to be like, right? So I think we have more players on this team that have been between the lines. They've played in the critical moments. They know how to prepare Sunday to Saturday to get ready for a game, and they won't be as anxious or uncertain about what it really will be like when they get out there. So, and don't get me wrong, we have a handful of those that will have to contribute to our team, but I do think that we'll be able to grow and develop those guys as the season goes. So, yeah, I think just the experience factor really matters when you start talking about getting ready for an opener. I think there's a part of me that would say that that's important.
We saw past couple of days, Jaquavion Frazier's and Tank Hawkins look like they're dealing with ailments. Can you provide any detail?
Yeah, so lower body injury for Baby J. Andy Jean is the other player that has an upper body injury that will probably take a little bit of time. And then Tank, I think, is day to day. I think we'll see where he's at, but nothing long-term for Tank. And I think Baby J and Andy are to be determined.
Did Zap have a pick six?
I'm surprised that he didn't post that on social media.
Was he excited? I'm curious.
Yeah. Not only was he excited, but that entire defensive sideline was excited. So it was a great fundamental play by Jack Pyburn. It was a near-hand bat off the quarterback's hand, and it's actually an RPO that got tipped up into the air, and then it was Christmas Day for one Tyreek Sapp.
How long did he run it back?
It was probably 70 yards, I would say.
70 yards.
Don't tell anybody, but Jaden Ball hawked him down. Okay, so, but no, he scored. He did.
And celebrated it, I assume.
Yeah, we had an entire sideline that was celebrating.
Hey, Devin Moore's another guy, we saw him I guess he was in a black jersey on Friday, and then we didn't see him. Is that the tonsils still, or what's
Yeah,
that?
tonsils. Yeah, we'll get him back here soon.
Overall, are you pleased with the progress your defense has made week to week to week so far in camp?
I am. I see flashes of what I would expect. I think we have high expectations for how we want to play defense around here. As a head coach, I would tell you when we've won games, we've been good on defense. I think if you look at year 2, 3, and 4 at Louisiana, we were 25th, 18th, 11th in the country in defense. And we want to play complementary ball, and we understand. Look at championship football teams, Power 5 football, Power 4 football now. Got to be good on defense. So we've got high expectations for how we want to play. And I do think that we've made a bunch of progress. Now the games are here, and won't be long. We'll get a chance to go out there and prove it. But our ability to do that consistently is the key. And I think Coach Robertson, Coach Armstrong, Coach Harris, Coach Chapman, Coach Peterson, that entire group would tell you the same thing. Now it's about the attention to detail, it's about the urgency, and it's about being able to do your job consistently. Can you have the self-discipline to show up and prepare the right way when the game plan changes and the opponent changes? So 1 week at a time, I think your ability to take the information, to study the opponent, and then get yourself ready to prepare when it matters. And to do that week in and week out. So, but yes, I do think we have more experience, we have more competitive depth, and I think the coaches have done a good job.
You mentioned 160 plays, I believe, on Saturday. Is that an indicator of guys understanding more the pace of play that you want to play at and understanding how the flow of the scrimmage is supposed to go?
No, it's about right. I mean, I think we're usually between 120 and 135. And then we've got a certain number of plays we're trying to hit from a kicking standpoint, kicking game standpoint. But, yeah, I mean, I think we have more threes. So the threes got maybe a few more reps than usual. And got more players to roll through to make sure that we hit play counts. You know, I think we're trying to get each player a certain amount of work, and we spread that out. But we worked our way through all the situations, and, yeah, good competitive work. It was back and forth throughout. I think both sides had success throughout. And that's what you like to see. Sometimes you don't sleep very good if it's lopsided, I would say.
What do you think DJ's gotten out of camp in his development? Now that
Yeah,
it's
I
winding
think
down?
just a million reps, right? I think just overall familiarity with all the concepts, you know, offensively, then all his progressions in the throw game, and then just overall knowledge of front pressure coverage. He's seeing a ton of variables. Training camp's hard for these thinking positions, you know, for the guys that have to process and communicate, the quarterback, the offensive line, the tight ends, the inside backers, the safeties, because you got a ton of offense in and you got a ton of defense in, and the number of variables just starts going up. So very challenging for a young player at any position, much less quarterback.
What's been his, like, resilience level when he makes mistakes? It sounds like he might have had a few in the last couple weeks during scrimmages, and how does he move past those?
Oh, he does great. I mean, I think he's very mature. I think he's a great competitor. I think he's learning. I think it's healthy. I mean, heck, I think it's really harder is better for a young player. I believe that. And I think it's the only way that you improve. You know, I mean, I think ultimately you got to go through some challenge, right? You got to make mistakes. I mean, repeatedly in a practice setting for a young player, you fail and then you get up off the ground and you go back at it. And don't forget, there's also a side of this to where you have to handle having tremendous success, right? So I think, well, history is the best indicator of the future. So those guys get banged up, right? We know that. So I think we're going to need every single one of them, you know. And I think our ability to practice and develop our team is key too, right? You need a stable of backs, right? So, again, it's about doing their job consistently for the inexperienced players, right? So how you play without the ball is as critical, if not more critical. A lot of the important downs in a football game, you may not have the ball. You may be protecting the quarterback, right? So, and these guys are going to play on special teams now. You know, I mean, I think and some of them are really good special teams players. So, yeah, that's a good room. You know, and Coach DeLuke continues to produce. You know, I mean, that's just what he does, right? So I don't ever have to worry about the running backs, and those guys always are ready to play.
We haven't really had a chance to talk to you about kick and punt return a whole bunch. How have you seen those areas progress, and who maybe are the standouts in those roles?
Yeah, no, it's really competitive, right? I mean, I think Chim DK, Trey Wilson, Tank Hawkins, Montrell's worked back there, Jaden Ball's worked back there. That's punt returner, you know, kick returner. Jaden Ball has gotten work. Obviously, Tank, Mizell. So, yeah, I mean, I think we were running out there today. We got options, you know. Something important to understand is when you're the returner, the most important thing is to secure the ball. Let's get the ball back to the offense, right? So your decision-making and your ability to communicate is probably the most important part. Ball security and your ability to make a good decision in the moment and communicate with the other players. So I think that the kick returner and the punt returner, that's part of their job, and that's the area where we have some good players that can do that well, and then we have some talented players that need to improve in those areas.
Was that maybe an area that fell a little short last year for you guys, just the decision-making aspect of returns, when to take touchbacks versus when to bring it out and all those kinds of things?
I think we did better at that last year. I think the first year is where we had issues with that at the beginning of the season, right? So I think we did better in that. And look, I think punt return, you know, we've had some success there. I mean, I think statistically we've been pretty good.
When it comes to explosive plays, Trey made the big splash last year. Where does he go from here? I mean, what do you want to see? Where will we see that?
Yeah, I think Trey's, Trey's ability to be consistent, to ignore the hype, to don't believe the hype, to be a consistent worker, in the film room, your practice habits, how you approach your self-discipline, how you take care of your body, what you eat, what you drink, how much sleep you get, your commitment to continue to improve your skills throughout the season. How many balls did you catch on the jugs today? I think he had a good example in Ricky Pearsall last year. There wasn't a day went by that Ricky didn't catch 100 in that indoor. So he knows what it looks like, and now it's his turn to do that every single day.
How are things going with the special teams, Matt? We saw it a little bit, I think, on Thursday.
Yeah, that was great. Yeah, I think we, anything and everything that we can do to improve our process, we're going to do it.
How's Rod currently doing cross-training, and just what flexibility does he give you guys with his ability?
Yeah, Rod is definitely improved. Think about where Rod's at today compared to maybe when he first got here. He showed up at 265 pounds. I think he weighs like 310 now and looks great. I think the defensive lineman would tell you that he's got great play strength. He's crafty as a blocker. He's improved his ability to communicate, to play with technique. And now it's time to hopefully at some point get some game experience and learn what it's like out there. So Rod is one of our leaders. Rod has incredible character and intangibles. He's a worker, and he has the ability to inspire and affect other people. So he's a guy that sets the tone around here, for sure.
How much has Hayden Hansen progressed over the course of the last year, just now that he's had a year to really play under his belt?
I think he's very much like Arliss in terms of last year. This guy's has zero experience. He's a former high school quarterback. Hayden has changed his body completely. I think some of his body composition numbers are a reflection of how hard he worked. And I think the strength conditioning and nutrition program worked for him. But he's just a smarter, more aware player. Hayden's a leader. He's vocal. He's a smart player. He's a good communicator. He's a big man. This guy's 6'6", 270 pounds. Seems like yesterday I'm in Weatherford, Texas, right, sitting in his living room with his mom and dad on that ranch. So, Hayden's he's one of our best. He continues to do a really good job.
Thanks, Coach.
All right, guys. Thank you all.